Been talking a lot about your brain and how it functions in relation to producing these stories. I know that as you, because of a previous conversation we had, that as you were researching autism for the Bat books, you learned some things about your own brain. What did you learn?
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know that my brain is neuroatypical, which I had always sort of known, but I didn't have that word. But I mean, like the things that Bat does are all things I did as a kid, you know. Bat is a hand flapper when he gets excited or nervous. I was not a flapper, but I used to walk around, I still do, with my hands like this. And I got teased at no end by my family and by my schoolmates. You know, I got called T-Rex, I got called Mr. Burns, all kinds of things. But this just felt like a safe, good, nice place to put my hands, you know. I have incredible noise sensitivity. I never had a pair of earmuffs, but gosh, I wish I would have had. I wish that would have been seen as something I could have. I did go to a concert not too long ago with my two teens, and I wore my son's drumming earphones the whole time, and I enjoyed myself so much more hearing sound at a third of what it should be heard at. I absolutely am someone who has sensory integration issues. I would be overwhelmed in class. I didn't know how to make friends. I still find people to be a beautiful enigma, which is probably why I write about them. I was never diagnosed with anything as a kid because I was a girl in the 80s, which means that as long as I was reading books and not causing trouble, you know, sure, I was disorganized, and sure, I didn't have friends, and sure, I was physically awkward, and sure, I had food sensitivities and nothing could touch, and I had all these things, but mostly I was not a problem. And so I think I missed out on services that could have been useful for me, although who knows how much they existed when I was a kid, had I been identified as someone who needed extra help. So I learned a lot about myself through researching Bat, but also through people that ask me all these questions since Bat has come out about how did you write such a good character with autism as a neurotypical person, or as a person who's not autistic, how did you write such a great autistic character? And I find myself sort of bristling at those assumptions too, because I think there is sort of a very wonderful and important movement about, you know, own voices and people writing from a place of authenticity when you're writing about a marginalized community. And I respect and understand and agree. And because people contain multitudes, often not everything that someone is or that someone has access to is something they feel necessarily safe sharing publicly. So Bat has reached such a tipping point in its popularity. My editor says that we're like getting close to like 1 million copies of the Bat book sold, which is, I think we're like 850,000 or something now. It's a crazy number of books. That now I feel kind of compelled to talk about things because other people talk about me in a way that feels weird, you know, as far as like, I've seen a couple of people write about like neuro, even nice things, you know, neurotypical authors who did it right, you know, and almost like why we should be able to write about neuroatypical people as neurotypical people, because Elana did. Well, first of all, I think people should be able to write about whatever they want, and other people should be able to have any opinion they want about what that author did right or wrong. So one can write any story one wants, and other people will and can and should have their own opinions about that too. And you might not like that. So writing something and publishing it are kind of different things. Anyway, at this point, I kind of feel like, well, the cat's, you know, the horse is out of the barn, you know, and I didn't talk a lot about my own brain and my own diagnoses and my own thoughts about myself, honestly, in large part because of health insurance. I have lived, like I've mentioned now about being sick, I have lived through a time when I was unable to get health insurance because the Affordable Care Act didn't exist and my husband got laid off and we were traveling, and I already had another pre-existing condition before I got so sick, and I was denied health coverage because it was before Obamacare, and we were unable to insure me. And that was terrifying and anger making. And so the idea of like publicly announcing diagnoses of any kind, physical or mental, scares me and makes me uncomfortable, because Obamacare is a thing, but we've seen our country shifting in large ways, some quite terrible and frightening. And just on a personal level, I worry about things like access to healthcare. And then we see people, people make different decisions about how they want to talk about their loved ones. I worry about privacy and how much I understand the desire to know that things are being written from a place of authenticity and research, but I also understand the desire to privacy and protect. So it's a fuzzy line, and each author has to make one's own decision about how to deal with such things. But I think the truth is all of us need to do very careful, thorough, good research about whatever we're writing about, whether it's lived experience or not. And we need to listen to other people who might know more about an experience than we do, and take if someone's willing to give us input, to not figure out all the reasons why they're wrong, and instead consider that they might be helping us.
Something that bugs me once in a while when I see conversations like that happening, is I'll see, so-and-so must be thinking terrible thoughts about the world, and this is their manifesto because they portrayed this character wrong. And I'll look at it like, no, that's just bad writing, which is a shame. I wish that they had written a better thing than what they wrote, but they're not twisting an evil mustache. They just should have had a little bit of stronger craft in that particular instance.
Yeah. Or sometimes, as someone I think I've had some of my work interpreted in a way that feels not great, is sometimes people aren't reading the book carefully enough too. Like I will just take Red Hood as an example. I've read some people who say that book is bad because its lesson is that we should kill boys who are sexual predators. And that's just such a unfinished theory to come up with if you read that book, because that book is, first of all, it's about werewolves, and it's kind of a superhero book, and it's so interesting because it's about a girl who there are deaths at her hand, but she's not killing boys, she's killing werewolves. These boys have transformed into werewolves and they're trying to kill her or the people she loves, and she kills them instead. And the lesson people get is, well, couldn't she have figured out some better way? And not all boys are wolves. And it's like, well, the book never said they were. So sometimes I feel like, yes, it's bad craft. And maybe someone could argue that my book was bad craft. I would argue the opposite. Sometimes it's lazy reading too. I guess I'm just being a little personal in my understanding of people's interpretation of that book in particular. So I do think a book, if you're going to be a critic, I do think that one has an obligation to be thorough and thoughtful, and not just necessarily lead with reaction. I'm
reminded of something that somebody that I had a lot of ire with in my youth, Joel Schumacher, a director who made Batman and Robin, which I have not completely forgiven him for. But in the director's commentary, he said something to the effect that I've been receiving hate mail and death threats for 20 years. And it's like, okay, I get that you're upset, people, but there was a war on. There were real issues that you should have been concerned with. And that's what I think of sometimes when I see people going off on young adult authors or whatever. I realize that talking about young adult literature or middle grade is far more fun than talking about real life things. But if you're going to focus that ire toward creating change in a society, leave the poor authors alone. They're doing the best they can. Let's focus on folks with some real power to do things.
Yeah, I get that. And I also get that if you are an author, you are in a position of privilege and power. You've gotten to do the thing that most people don't. You've gotten to publish your book and get paid for it. And as much as I might disagree with people's commentary, and sometimes I do wish people would be more careful readers, I also understand that it's their right to think whatever they want about my book. So it's a double-edged sword. Any question about commentary and ownership of story, like I know I'm kind of saying the opposite of what I just said, but I also think that one of my greatest abilities as a human in my 40s is that I've come to be able to hold two disparate truths in my head at the same time. And I find that to be very true, that yes, people should be more careful with their words. And as a writer, I am public fodder. And it's, again, it's none of my business what people think of my book. And it's probably, I should look away and not read reviews, especially not Goodreads.
I know some authors who assure me they never read their reviews, and I believe them, but I do. Do you read your reviews, or have you?
I do read my reviews. I'm really trying not to, because I do find these to be less helpful. And I think these are for readers and not for writers. I have been a Goodreads reviewer, but I think it's helpful if it helps you be more creative to read your reviews, or if it helps you to be more insightful. But if it just sort of hurts you and makes you not want to write, then it's time to look away. Because each of us contains multitudes, and none of our job is to craft a perfect lesson. Our job is to tell interesting stories the best we can. And so I'm trying to not go to Goodreads.
Well, having said that, you accept that you have some responsibility as a young adult author, as an author, you write everything we've established, all the genres, all the things. But as an author, what responsibilities do you feel that you have?
My job is to tell a good story the best I can, and to acknowledge that I am one voice in a sea of voices, that many of which know more and have more experience and more breadth than I have. So I think one of my responsibilities is to continue to grow my knowledge of the world around me, and the body of work being created by my peers and my mentors, and to defer often to someone who has a better ability to tell a story than I can. Not every story necessarily has to be told by me. I'm greedy, I'm an author. I'm a storyteller. We're all like crows, like we see things and we want them. But more and more I've started to ask myself, I could do this, but is there something I could be doing that I could do better? Because I know that there's other authors out there who can do this other thing better than I can, and more honestly than I can. So when I'm in that early falling in love with the story idea, better than I used to be, I don't necessarily think that I am necessarily the person who can do the best job. I mean, it's funny because authors, we both think we're God, and we think we're the lowliest worm, right? Like both, I can create worlds, and at the same time, who am I? Why should anyone even listen to me? Again, containing multitudes, holding both truths in my head at the same time. There's this wonderful Jewish tradition. You hold two pieces of paper, one in each pocket, and one says, "The world was created for me. I am, child of God." And in the other pocket, "I am dirt and dust, and I shall be dust again." And both of those are true. So again, I don't think you can separate. I cannot separate writing from humaning. My job as a human is both to believe that I am unique and special, and my life is important and valuable, and to understand that I am a dot in the enormity of humanity. And as a writer, I am both one voice, and it is my voice, and so therefore it is important. And I am in a chorus. I am one in a chorus of people telling stories. And so I have a responsibility to listen to the chorus and to be in conversation with other voices. I don't think I have a responsibility. I know some writers feel like if they're writing for children, then they have a responsibility to, like, I don't know, be moral, tell moral stories, or teach lessons to their readers, or maybe something more complicated than that I can't quite put my right on. But I think my responsibility is to the story. Readers get to decide if they pick it up. But again, this speaks to my belief that I don't think we should make children read certain things either. I think every reader has their own journey that they should be on.